Well, good morning and welcome to this morning's reflection. Let us take just a moment to be still. Today, I'd like to speak about a man who was born in 1623 in France. And he was a child of remarkable brilliance. From a very young age, his mind grasped what others struggled to understand. He was able to grasp geometry, mathematics, physics. By his teenage years, he was already shaping discoveries that would influence science for centuries. He invented an early calculating machine, and he explored the nature of pressure and vacuum, and he laid the foundations for probability theory. This man was Blaise Pascal. And from outside, his life might appear as a triumph of intellect, a mind ablaze with clarity and precision. Yet Pascal's true legacy lies not in his brilliance, but in his restlessness. For beneath this mathematical genius was a heart, searching for something more than knowledge. He sensed even in his youth that human reason, for all its power, could not satisfy the deepest hunger of the soul. We might pause here and ask ourselves gently, where does our own cleverness fail us? Where does achievement leave us still longing? Blaise Pascal lived in a century intoxicated with reason. Science was rising, certainty seemed attainable. Yet Pascal saw something that others missed. He saw the fragility of human beings, their contradictions, their capacity for greatness and misery at the same time. He wrote, "What a chimera then is man! What novelty! What a monster! What a chaos! What a contradiction! What a prodigy!" He understood that the human condition wasn't tidy, but was a mystery. And so his life became a journey between two worlds, the world of reason and the world of faith, the clarity of the mind and the deep ache of the heart. In 1654, Pascal experienced what he later described simply as fire, a profound encounter with God that lasted 2 hours and completely changed the direction of his life. He recorded fragments of this experience on a piece of parchment, beginning with the words, "God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob," not of philosophers and scholars. And these words reveal something essential. Pascal did not reject intellect, but he saw that God was not an abstract idea to be solved like a theorem. God was living, personal, and one could encounter him in love and could surrender to him rather than merely encountering him in argument. After this encounter, Pascal gradually withdrew from the social and intellectual circles that had defined him, and he turned toward a quieter, more prayerful life. He associated with the Jainist community at Port Royal, people deeply concerned with grace, humility, and the seriousness of spiritual life. Yet he did not abandon thinking. Instead, he offered his mind in service of the soul. His unfinished work, Pensies, or Thoughts, was intended as a defense of the Christian faith. But it is far more than an argument. It is a spiritual anatomy of the human condition, our longing for happiness, our avoidance of silence, our tendency to distract ourselves from the deeper questions of existence. Pascal observed that human beings cannot bear to sit quietly in their room alone. We fill our lives with noise and activity because stillness confronts us with our vulnerability and our need for God. Perhaps we recognize this in ourselves. How often do we rush toward distraction rather than remain quiet? How often do we fill our days so that we do not have to face the deeper questions of meaning and morality? Blaise Pascal invites us not to despair, but rather invites us into honesty. He saw clearly both the grandeur and the deep brokenness of humanity. We are capable of astonishing thought and creativity, and yet we are fragile, inconsistent, often lost. For Blaise, this paradox pointed toward grace. If we are both great and miserable, it is because we are made for something beyond ourselves and have lost our way. Our restlessness is a sign of our origin. He wrote words that echo across the centuries. The heart has its reasons which reason does not know. This is not a rejection of reason, but a reminder that love, intuition, and encounter carry a wisdom beyond calculation. They are truths that can only be known through relationship, through trust, through surrender. Blaise Pascal himself lived with physical suffering for much of his life, and chronic illness weakened his body and shortened his years. He died at only 39. Yet his suffering did not embitter him. Instead, it deepened his awareness of life's fragility and of the urgency of love. Toward the end of his life, he gave generously to the poor, simplified his living, and sought to orientate himself ever more fully toward God. So let us pause again. What does it mean to live well knowing life is fragile? What does it mean to allow our limitations to soften rather than harden us? Pascal's life suggests that brilliance alone is not enough. Achievement alone is not enough. Certainty alone is not enough. What matters is the orientation of the heart. He invites us to humility, to recognize both our gifts and our need. He invites us to honesty, to face the restlessness within, rather than covering it with distraction. He invites us to openness, to the possibility that God meets us not only in clarity, but in longing, in questions, in the quiet fire of encounter. Perhaps the most contemplative way to honor Blaise Pascal is not to analyze him, but to listen with him, to listen to the silence beneath our busyness, to listen to the questions beneath our answers, to listen for the gentle movement of grace within our lives. As we draw this reflection to a close, let us hold a simple awareness. We are beings of mind and heart. We seek understanding and we seek love. We are capable of great insight and also of deep need. Pascal reminds us that these are not contradictions to be solved, but mysteries to be lived. So we rest for a moment in quiet gratitude for minds that can wonder, for hearts that can love, and for the presence of God who meets us not only in certainty, but in longing. And so let us end this reflection in stillness.